I'm going to say this again. This team woke you up last year, but here's the biggest question. Are you just going to fall asleep after them waking you up, or do you need them to wake you up again in this up-and-coming season? Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, I've been waiting very long to make this video. I've been planning to make it, but there's been so much stuff going on in the college football world, but finally, we're getting to it. And also, I do apologize for this being a late upload, but I've been extremely busy making some other videos. Meant to upload this earlier, but the breaking news came out about the Big Ten, their new schedule, and all that nice stuff. Go check out those videos if you want to. And oh yeah, also, congratulations to the Oklahoma fan base, not because of football reasons, but they just won their 3rd straight softball championship. I know a lot of you don't care about that, but 3 straight championships in any collegiate sport, that is hard to do, really hard. And guess what? We might see it happen in football in this up-and-coming season. There's a chance for it. But we're not here to talk about Georgia, don't worry. We are here to talk about the one team in the college football landscape that nobody, and I mean absolutely not a single soul, wants to play. This is a team that nobody talks about. In the offseason, not a single... This is a team that nobody talks about, they're underrated, and they don't get enough recognition. Granted, it is key to throw in there, the past couple of years they haven't been the greatest team ever, but last year they proved they belong with the big boys. And not only did they just prove they belong with the big boys, they beat the big boys. We're going to talk all about that said team in tonight's video. I'm so excited to get into this video because I'm just so curious to see what you guys got to say. Let me know your thoughts on this down below. I'm going to give you some reasons and facts as to why you should be scared of this team, so just watch this video all the way through and then let me know your opinion down below. We got one other minor thing we're going to talk about. Somebody sent me something on Twitter and I do want to look at it in this video. It's going to be a good one. All right, Matt, blah, 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 shut your crap up. Now, without further ado, let's get into it. Okay, first things first. I've been waiting to talk about this as well. So, Jim Harburger, great username or profile name, whatever you want to call it on Twitter, tweeted this at me. Matt, be great. I'm creating a list of teams that scares me the most as a Michigan fan. I'm wondering if you're willing to look at this and share your thoughts on it. I would love for you to create a list of teams that scares you as an Alabama fan, and yeah, I'll look at it, no problem. And the reason I've been putting this off as well is because I've been waiting to do it with this video because it goes hand in hand with what we're about to talk about. But as a Michigan fan, old Jim Harburger said this is his top 10 list of scariest teams that he doesn't want to play. Starting at 10, working our way up, we got Oregon, Utah, Texas, Penn State, Ohio State, South Kakalaki, Tennessee, LSU, Alabama, and Georgia. This is coming from a Michigan fan, and you know what I find really interesting about this? Look at the top 5. All SEC teams. This is a Michigan fan. This is the Big Ten fan. Y'all do what you want with this information. This isn't Matt with his quote-unquote SEC bias. This is your good old-fashioned Big Ten fan giving the SEC some respect, and I like it. As far as it goes for this list, as a Michigan fan, yeah, you got 1 and 2 right. You should be scared of Alabama and Georgia the most. LSU's good, Tennessee's good, South Kakalaki's good, but here's where I get a little confused. Why is Ohio State on this list? Maybe you're just doing this because you respect them, and I can understand that, but you've beat them in back-to-back seasons, and it wasn't even close. And remember, this is his list for teams as a Michigan fan he's scared of. He didn't say top 10 scariest teams in the country. Maybe he meant that, but what he said was, as a Michigan fan, these are the teams he's scared of the most. And for me, at least, if I was a Michigan fan, I wouldn't be scared of Ohio State. They're frauds. They're soft. You pushed them around in not just one season, but in back-to-back years. You got a better quarterback than Ohio State. You got a better head coach. You got a better running back. I could go on and on and on. The only thing that Ohio State beats you in is talent, but that's it. So I don't understand that one. Penn State, I guess I could rationalize that. Texas, yeah, that's a good one. And then Oregon and Utah. Not too sure how Oregon... I'm sorry, Oregon fans, but I'm not too sure how Oregon even cracked your top 10. Maybe you just need to throw in some filler teams at the end, so I guess that's why you put Utah and Oregon. Overall, I think this is a decent list. If I was a Michigan fan, though, I wouldn't have Ohio State on here or Oregon. I don't have a problem with Utah, but no way I'm putting Lil Bro, which is Ohio State, by the way, on my list. He did also say, I would love for you to create a list of teams that scares you as an Alabama fan, and let's do this real quickly. I'm assuming since you did 10, you want my top 10, so let's do this real quickly, and we gotta get a move on. Well, now that I think about it, I can't give you a 10 because I'm not scared of 10 teams. I can give you 5, though. We'll do 5. And even 5's pushing it. I'm not scared of many teams. But starting at number 5, I'm going to throw in Texas just just due to the fact that they have Quinn Ewers, Steve Sarkisian, offensive mastermind, and they got a ton of talent. They can compete with Alabama. Not many teams can compete with Alabama, so that's rare. At number 4, this is going to shock a lot of people, and you won't understand this unless you're an Alabama fan, but I'm going to say Auburn. Why does Auburn scare me? Well, I don't know how to explain it, but if you're an Alabama fan or an Auburn fan or an SEC fan, you know exactly what I'm talking about. There is some type of witchcraft inside of Jordan-Hare Stadium, and I can't say anything else about it. That's all there is to it. There is this aura around this Auburn Stadium. When Alabama plays there, you just know some BS is going to happen. And also, to go on top of that, they got Hugh Freeze, and Hugh Freeze has had Alabama's number dating back to Ole Miss. Auburn doesn't scare me when we got to play them at home in Tuscaloosa, but when we got to go to Jordan-Hare Stadium, my stomach, it turns into butterflies. I'm just getting a bad feeling thinking about it right now. But Auburn, they're at number 4. For 3, I'm going to say LSU. Just based off of the fact they got a ton of talent. It's always a great rival matchup. And Brian Kelly is a heck of a coach. At number 2, I'm going to throw old Tennessee up there for obvious reasons. They're on the come up. And Josh Heupel, he knows what he's doing. And last but not least, at number 1, you know what I'm about to say. Georgia. I'm not going to sit up here and explain it. You know why I got Georgia at 1. They're the best. So that's my top 5. I really appreciate Jim Harburger tweeting this at me because a lot of thought had to go into this tweet. I know you took some time out of your day, so thank you yet again. Oh, snap, I forgot about this Michigan. I would also have them in my top 3 for sure. So, yeah, just bump every team down. I'd probably put Michigan at either 2 or 3. And like always, guys, if there's anything you want me to talk about in a video or you think we should talk about, tweet it at me, send it to me, and more times than not, we're going to talk about it. But getting that out the way and moving on to the main topic, the main encore, the main reason you clicked onto this video. Come on now. We got to talk about the one team in the college football world that nobody, not a single soul, wants to play. And here's the funny part about this. You know, a lot of people are going to be like, oh, yeah, you know, Matt's just kind of saying that to hype up the video. But no, I actually mean this. I genuinely mean nobody wants to play this team. And no, this is not a team that was on my top 5 list of teams that kind of scared me. They would have came in at probably honorable mention at number 6. And then I also didn't want to throw them on my list because y'all guys, you would have got a hint on what we're going to talk about. So who is this mystery team that nobody wants to play? Well, it is no other than South Kakalaki. Whoa. Hold on, Timothy. Hold on before you run to the comment section and say, Matt, you're stupid. I'll play South Carolina right now. Just hold your horses, partner. You got to hear me out. Now, if you hear me out and you still think I'm stupid, then you can write your comment. But just hold on a second. Why does nobody want to play South Carolina, though? Well, to answer that question, we got to get some context. So let's start off with what they did last year. Because for a lot of you that don't know, this South Carolina team is returning a lot of key players from that team. So you can't sit up here and act like last year doesn't matter, because it does matter a ton. And also, this team is carrying off that momentum from last year, but we'll get to that in just a second. Last year, this South Carolina team under Shane Beamer, they went 8-5, and it doesn't seem all too impressive, but you got to take a look at how they really did. At the very beginning of their season, they started off pretty bad. They lost to Arkansas 44-30, and they got destroyed by Georgia 48-7. Then they go on a pretty nice 4-game winning streak. They beat Kentucky by double digits, and they upset A&M. Well, then, right after that, it's back to being terrible. They lose to Missouri by double digits. They beat Vanderbilt, but then they get destroyed by Florida. At this point in time, I remember the conversation. It was like, well, dang, is Shane Beamer going to have a job next year? Is he going to be on the hot seat? And oh, what do you know? In the next 2 games, they destroy Tennessee and they upset Clemson at Clemson. You got to understand, before those 2 games, they lost to Missouri and lost to Florida. Florida last year was terrible, and they lost by over 30 points. But then they just turned everything around. They got hot quick. They beat 2 top 10 teams in back-to-back weeks. Did anybody in college football have a better 2-game stretch in the regular season than South Carolina? I don't think so. They finished the regular season 8-4, and unfortunately, they lost their bowl game to Notre Dame, but they still played good, and they only lost by 7 points. The point is, they ended last year on a good note. Even with them losing to Notre Dame, there is still this swagger around this South Carolina program that hasn't been there in at least 10 years. I haven't seen this much hype around South Carolina football since they upset Alabama over 10 years ago. And I would say one of the main reasons I'm so high on them heading into 2023 is because of Spencer Rattler. Who would have thought I'd ever be saying that? Last year he had a bumpy season, but late in the year he really turned it on. And you got to understand this. Take a look at their last 3 games. They gave up 38 points, 30 points, and 38 points. And they still almost won all 3 of those games. They won 2 out of 3. And I don't know if this is true, but I got 1 to 2 sources up around that South Carolina area, and they told me this defense has improved. When I tell you guys to take that with a grain of salt, I mean it. But here's what I am going to say. If this defense has improved, yeah, the rest of the country's in trouble. They didn't even need a defense to beat Tennessee and Clemson, and we saw what happened. And just imagine if South Carolina's defense isn't even good. Just imagine if they're slightly above average. They're at bare minimum going to go 9-3. Or probably 9-3, maybe a little too high for the bare minimum. I'd say 8-4. And I think the biggest thing about all this is Shane Beamer, he's not on the hot seat. He's very comfortable. He's heading into his third year. There's no pressure. And when I say there's no pressure, I mean that. And that's why I think nobody wants to play him. Because now Shane Beamer doesn't have to prove himself to anybody. He's already done that. He can let it loose. He can take a little more risk. When you're in your first year and even your second year at a big Power 5 college and a big Power 5 team in the SEC, you can't be doing crazy stuff because you haven't proved yourself. But now with him being in the league, people know his name, people respect him. He's got a little more, what's the word? He's got a bigger leash. That's what I'm looking for. South Carolina's going to give him a little more leeway. And we all know this. When you got a little more leeway, when you're letting it fly, letting it loose as a player or coach, that's when you perform your best. If you've ever played sports or coached sports, you know this. Momentum's a real thing, and they are going to carry that momentum over from last season. It's going to happen. Now, with that being said, do I think this South Kakalaki team is a top 10 team? No, absolutely not. So I know what you're sitting there saying. Well, Matt, how are you going to say nobody wants to play them, but you don't even got them in the top 10? And here's why. When I say nobody wants to play them, it's because, I really want you to think about this, South Carolina isn't playing with pressure. Nobody expects South Carolina to beat Georgia. Nobody expects South Carolina to beat Tennessee. Nobody expects South Carolina to beat an Alabama or even a Clemson or even in their first game, North Carolina. There's no pressure on these guys, and we saw that in the Tennessee and Clemson game. They played freely, and they're good enough to beat those teams. South Carolina's in a very odd position because normally teams with this much talent, they get a lot of respect and recognition, but South Carolina doesn't. And I think a main reason everybody overlooks them is the same reason people overlook Penn State. Penn State and South Carolina aren't even a top 2 team in their division, let alone their conference. Why is that? Because Penn State is in the same division as Michigan and Ohio State, and South Carolina is in the same division as Tennessee and Georgia. So everybody just kind of writes them off from the jump because there's no way they're going to beat out Georgia for the division title. But after seeing what they did last year, take a look at their schedule right here. You mean to tell me they're not going to upset one of these teams like a North Carolina, a Georgia, a Tennessee, same thing as last year, or a Clemson? I think they got a great chance to beat Tennessee again. I think they got a great chance to beat North Carolina, and I think they got a great chance to upset Clemson. You'll notice, though, I didn't say Georgia. You have no shot in the dark of beating Georgia. Sorry, I'm not sorry. But outside of that, yeah, I think they can win all these games, and I think it's really going to come down to Rattler. Why do I say that? Well, last year, that's what it came down to. I'm not going to go through every single game. We've done that before, but all the games they lost, Rattler didn't play good. But in the 2 big games they won against Clemson and Tennessee, Rattler played out of his mind. The recipe for South Carolina to have a great season is fairly simple. If Rattler plays great, you're going to have a great season. If he doesn't play great, you're not going to have a great season. I can't dumb it down any more than that. The quarterback position for South Carolina is so important to this team. But to go on top of that, they're talented at all these other positions as well. But we all know this, your quarterback is really the biggest X factor. We can sit up here all day long and say, yeah, your wide receivers are important, your cornerbacks, your safeties, defensive linemen, etc., but we all know quarterback is the most important. It is what it is. And heck, man, Rattler's been playing college football for 5 years now. I don't see why he wouldn't have a good season in this up-and-coming year. There's really no excuse for him not to be one of the best quarterbacks in the country. Do not, and let me repeat this, do not sleep on this South Carolina team. They woke you up last year, but here's the question. Are you going to stay awake? I'm going to say this again. This team woke you up last year, but here's the biggest question. Are you just going to fall asleep after them waking you up? Or do you need them to wake you up again in this up-and-coming season? That is the question of the video. Let me know your thoughts down below. But